My next update deals with New York State, but what it deals with is a problem that exists across the United States. But we have some solid statistics in New York State, so I want to make that as an example. In New York State, there are 1.2 million families, so we're talking a minimum of 5 to 10 million people in those families, who are now facing what are called rent arrears. What that means is they haven't paid their rent, some of them for a month or two, some of them for 10 months. Many of these families are with children. So now let's look a little deeper into these numbers. 12.5% of New Yorkers are collecting unemployment insurance, 1 in 8 workers. And there's a big overlap between those who can't get a regular salary, who are having to live on unemployment, and therefore cannot cover their rent. You'll understand that even more when I tell you that in 2018, so that's a good 2 years before the pandemic hits, already then, 22% of New Yorkers, more than 1 in 5, paid more than half their income in rent. That's considered to be deep trouble. You can't live in our society if you're paying more than half of your income simply for your living situation. But that was true for almost 1 in 4 New Yorkers before the unemployment hit, before the pandemic hit. Before the pandemic, one more statistic for you, actually two. Before the pandemic, families with children made up 70% of the population of shelters in New York State. That's right. Families with children are the typical shelter occupant already before the pandemic and the unemployment hit. Children upon whom you really cannot blame 1 millimeter of what's happening to them. And then think about the consequences of doing this to all those children. And I'm going to give you my last statistic. In 2016, a survey showed that 85% of children living in shelters achieved proficiency scores in, didn't, I'm sorry, 85% of kids didn't get proficiency in math and reading. That's the damage done to their educations from being shelter occupants, which so many of them are. New York State is one of the richest states in the United States, which is one of the richest countries in the world. And we are treating our people, especially our children, in a way that illustrates that capitalism is at least as efficient in producing poverty and reproducing it as it is in producing wealth and reproducing thereby a level of inequality that calls the entire system into question. If we were serious as a society about doing something for this kind of inequality, condemning this generation, as we have as a nation for so many previous generations, to these levels of discrimination and inequality, the children who made none of these decisions, losing their education, living in the worst conditions, suffering all of the large and small indignities that go with it, we are reproducing horrific inequality. And if that continues, then I make you a prediction, which I rarely do. We're going to have as angry and upset a population 4 years from now that we've had over the last 4, probably worse. And the way we'll have been prepared for the next Trump to blame it all on whoever they can come up with. I'm sure QAnon will have an answer for why all this trouble is happening. But the bitterness, the anger, and the resentment, well, that's building because you're not dealing with this. I make an appeal to the new Biden administration. Deal with the fundamental systemic reproduction of inequality, or else it will come back to haunt you.